You think you know what a wolf is? You've seen it in movies, you've heard it in stories. You've imagined it gray fur, yellow eyes, standing on a cliff in the moonlight, howling at the sky. You think you know, but here's what no one ever told you. There is no single wolf. There are wolves living in places that will make you question everything you thought the word wolf meant. There are wolves that weigh less than your cat. There are wolves that have survived unchanged for 10,000 years. There are wolves so rare that fewer humans have seen them in the wild than have walked on the moon. So today, we go inside. Not just inside the pack, inside the life, inside the mind. Inside the world of each wolf, the way it sees, the way it hunts, the way it survives depending on which wolf it happens to be. Because being a wolf is not one experience, it is many, and every single one of them will surprise you. Number 1. The gray wolf, the one you think you know. Let's start with the one you think you already know. The gray wolf, Canis lupus. The wolf of fairy tales, of legends, of every painting ever put on a classroom wall. But here's what the paintings never showed you. What is it actually like to live inside a gray wolf pack every single day? Imagine waking up and your first job before food, before anything is politics, okay? Because that's what gray wolf life is. It is a constant, living, breathing political system. Pack of 7 to 12 wolves. Each one with a role, a rank, a relationship history with every other wolf in the group. And every morning, those relationships have to be renegotiated, not with words, but with body language, so precise and elite that scientists have spent decades learning to read even the basics of it. The way a tail is held straight out, or curled up, or tucked communicates rank, confidence, and intent simultaneously. The angle of the ears, the direction of the gaze. Whether you approach another wolf in a straight line or a curve. Straight line means challenge. Curve means respect. As a gray wolf, you are never really off duty. Even when you're resting sprawled in the afternoon sun. Looking relaxed, you are positioned relative to the others in a way that communicates your place in the structure. And when the hunt comes, everything changes. The gray wolf hunt is one of the most sophisticated cooperative strategies in the entire animal kingdom. Not because gray wolves are the fastest predator, they're not. They can run at 35 miles per hour, but an elk can outpace them in a short sprint. They are not built for quick kills. They are built for something far more terrifying. They are built to never stop. Gray wolves can run for hours, across mountains, across frozen plains, through snow that would exhaust any other predator. They track, they wait, they test. They push prey until the prey makes a mistake, and then, in the final seconds, the pack converges with a coordination that looks almost planned, because it is. What is it like to be a gray wolf? It is to live in a world where every relationship matters. Every hunt is a team effort, and your survival is inseparable from the survival of the wolves beside you. You are never alone, even when you are. Number 2. The Arctic wolf, the ghost of the frozen world now. Go north, further than you think, further than feels reasonable. Go until the trees disappear, until the ground is frozen year-round, until the sun doesn't set for months in summer and doesn't rise for months in winter. Go until you find the Arctic wolf. Here's your first question. If you lived in a world where it was dark for 5 months straight, where temperatures dropped to -40 degrees, and where your prey could see you coming from a mile away on open, flat, white ground, how would you survive? The Arctic wolf answered that question over thousands of years of evolution, and the answer is both simple and extraordinary. It became white. Not just coat white, bone white, cloud white, the precise white of fresh, undisturbed snow, so that from above, from the side, from any angle that matters, it simply disappears. But the disappearing act is only the beginning. Arctic wolves have paws that work like built-in snowshoes wider than other wolves, with fur between the pads that insulates against frozen ground. They have 2 layers of fur, an outer coat that repels wind and moisture, and an inner coat so dense and warm that the wolf's skin temperature barely changes even in the most extreme cold. Their ears are smaller than other wolves because large ears lose heat, and heat is survival. They can go 2 weeks without food. 2 weeks in -40 degrees. Hunting muskox that weigh 800 pounds and have horns like sledgehammers. What is it like to be an Arctic wolf? It is to live in a world with almost no shelter, almost no mercy, and almost no margin for error, and to have evolved into something so perfectly suited to that world that you don't just survive it, you own it. But here's the question that will stay with you. The Arctic wolf has almost no contact with humans. It has never been hunted to the brink. It has never had to be afraid of us, which means the Arctic wolf is one of the only wolves left on Earth that will actually approach a human out of curiosity rather than flee. In a world full of wolves that learned to fear us, the Arctic wolf never got the lesson. Is that freedom, or is it the most dangerous innocence in the wild world? Number 3. The red wolf, the one that almost wasn't. There is a wolf in North America right now that should not exist. By the numbers, by the math of extinction, it should be gone. This is the red wolf, Canis rufus, and its story is the most heartbreaking chapter in wolf history. The red wolf is smaller than a gray wolf, larger than a coyote. Its coat is a deep, burnt reddish-brown with black along the back, and a face that carries something ancient in it, wider. Almost bear-like, with amber eyes that seem to hold the memory of a world that no longer exists around them. What is it like to be an animal that has come back from the dead? Because that is what the red wolf did. By 1980, the red wolf was declared extinct in the wild. Gone, every last one. Centuries of habitat loss, hunting, and an aggressive government poisoning program that wiped out wolves across the American South left 0. Red wolves in the wild, 0. But 14 animals, 14, had been captured by biologists who refused to accept the ending the world had written. 14 red wolves kept alive in captivity while the argument about whether they deserved to exist continued around them. In 1987, a small group was released into the Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge in North Carolina, and they ran into the swamps and the marsh grasses and the humid Carolina forests. They disappeared, these wolves who had never known the wild, whose parents had never known the wild, and they began to live as wolves live. They hunted nutria and white-tailed deer and raccoons. They formed pairs and raised pups. They howled in the Carolina night and heard no answer at first, and then, one season later, they heard the answer of their own pups. Today, there are fewer than 20 red wolves left in the wild. 20. What is it like to be a red wolf? 'Tis to carry the weight of a species on your own back. To be the living proof that something can come back from 0. To run through a swamp in the American South and be, in the most literal possible sense, a miracle. Number 4. The maned wolf. The wolf that is not a wolf. Are you ready to have your definition of wolf completely broken? What if I told you there is an animal called a wolf that is not related to any other wolf? It doesn't howl, it roars. That it smells like marijuana. That it eats more fruit than meat. Meet the maned wolf, Chrysocyon brachyurus. And before you say anything, yes, it is real. The maned wolf lives in the grasslands and scrublands of South America, Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia. And it looks like something designed by someone who had only heard a wolf described over the phone. It has the face of a fox, the ears of a bat, the legs of a deer. Seriously, its legs are so long that it stands nearly 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Specifically evolved to see over the tall grasses of the South American Cerrado. And its coat is a deep, vivid red orange that makes it look less like a predator and more like something from a fantasy novel. It is the only member of its genus, which means evolutionarily it has no close relatives. It is not a true wolf. It is not a fox. It is not a coyote. It is, genuinely, its own category of animal wearing a wolf name it didn't choose. here's what will make you pause. The maned wolf's primary food source is a tomato-like fruit called the wolf apple, a fruit that evolved alongside the maned wolf and depends on it for seed dispersal. The wolf eats the fruit. The seeds survive digestion. The wolf deposits them elsewhere. The plant grows. The wolf created its own food supply over thousands of years by simply existing. It also communicates with a sound called a roar bark, a deep, resonant sound that carries across the savanna at night and sounds so unlike anything you associate with wolves that the first time you hear it, you genuinely wonder what kind of world you are living in. What is it like to be a maned wolf? It is to be defined by a name that doesn't quite fit. To live alone, maned wolves are solitary. Unlike almost every other canid wandering ranges of up to 30 square miles in a landscape that is vanishing around you. It is to be one of the most visually striking animals in the world and one of the least known. It is to be the wolf that makes you ask, what even is a wolf? Number 5. The Ethiopian wolf. The rarest song in the world, go to Africa. Go higher than you think, past the heat, past the savanna, past everything you imagine when you think of African wildlife, and climb. Climb until the air thins, till the temperature drops, until you are standing in a landscape that looks less like Africa and more like the surface of another planet. Rolling moorlands, giant lobelias like alien plants, and a sky so blue it almost hurts. You are in the Ethiopian highlands. You are at 14,000 feet above sea level. And if you are very, very quiet, you might see one. The Ethiopian wolf, Canis simensis. There are fewer than 500 left on Earth. It is the most endangered canid in the world. It is the rarest wolf, and it lives only here in these specific highlands, in these specific conditions, found absolutely nowhere else. Why here? Why only here? Because the Ethiopian wolf evolved alongside one specific food source, the African mole rat, a chubby, burrowing rodent that exists in extraordinary numbers in the highland meadows. And the Ethiopian wolf, unlike almost every other wolf species, hunts almost entirely alone. Not in packs, not with cooperative strategies. It stands at a mole rat burrow, perfectly still, perfectly patient, and it waits. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes longer. In the cold, thin air of the highland morning, a single wolf standing at a single hole in the ground, waiting with a concentration so complete that it looks less like hunting and more like meditation. And when the mole rat emerges, the strike is so fast it's nearly invisible. What makes the Ethiopian wolf even more remarkable is what it does in the evening. Despite hunting alone all day, Ethiopian wolves gather at sunset. They come together from across the moorland, from their separate hunting ranges, and they greet each other with an intensity and ceremony that looks almost joyful. Rubbing faces, licking, chasing briefly, rolling. They spend an hour together, and then they disperse again. They are social wolves who live solitary lives. They are pack animals who hunt alone. They are wolves who live at the top of Africa eating rats. Meeting at sunset to briefly remember that they belong to something larger than themselves, and then going back to their solitude. What is it like to be an Ethiopian wolf? It is to live at the edge of extinction in a landscape no one visits. To be so rare that your whole species fits inside a small stadium, and to gather at sunset anyway, to howl anyway, to greet each other with what can only be described as tenderness anyway. Even when there are only 500 of you left, especially then. The last but not the least, the dire wolf, the ghost that lives in our memory. What if I told you that the wolf we know, the gray wolf, the red wolf, all of them, is not the first wolf? What if the story of wolves goes further back than we thought? Into an Ice Age world, so different from ours that the animals walking through it would look to us like creatures from myth. What would it be like to be the original wolf? The dire wolf, Anocion dirus, was real, not a legend, not a fantasy. Real bones, real teeth, real fossils pulled from the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles and from sites across North and South America. An animal that walked this continent for over 100,000 years and went extinct just 9,500 years ago. That is recent. In geological time, that is yesterday. The dire wolf was not simply a bigger gray wolf. It was a different animal entirely. Heavier, stockier, built less for endurance and more for raw power. Its jaws were stronger, proportionally, than almost any canid that has ever existed, capable of crushing bone that even lions would leave behind. It lived alongside mammoths, alongside giant ground sloths, alongside the American lion and the short-faced bear. It competed with creatures that make our largest modern predators look modest. And then it vanished. The prey it depended on went extinct as the Ice Age ended and the world warmed. The gray wolf, faster and more adaptable, survived by adjusting. The dire wolf, specialized for a world that no longer existed, could not. What is it like to be a dire wolf? We can only imagine. We have only the bones. But those bones tell a story of power and precision, and a life lived in a world so full of enormous danger that the wolf who survived it had to be extraordinary. Yet, the gray wolf standing on a ridge today carries a genetic memory that stretches back to the world the dire wolf walked through. They are not related, but they shared the same landscape, the same prey, the same Ice Age sky. When a wolf howls tonight somewhere in Yellowstone, or in the mountains of Europe, or in the highlands of Ethiopia, it is howling in a world that the dire wolf knew. There is something in that howl that goes further back than we can fully understand. 6 wolves. 6 completely different worlds. 6 completely different answers to the question of how to survive. And here is what ties them all together. The one thing every wolf in every landscape, in every era, has shared. None of them are what you thought they were. The gray wolf is not the savage predator. It is a diplomat in fur, navigating a social world of extraordinary complexity. The Arctic wolf is not a killer. It is the most perfectly engineered survival machine the frozen world has ever produced. The red wolf is not a ghost. 'Tis a miracle 20 animals running through a Carolina swamp as proof that nothing is truly gone until the last breath. He-maned wolf is not a wolf at all. And that is exactly the point. Nature does not follow our categories. It makes what works. The Ethiopian wolf is not just endangered. It is a teacher, showing us that even when the numbers are terrifying, you gather at sunset anyway and remind yourself who you belong to. And the dire wolf is not just a fossil. It is a reminder that the world we live in is not the only world that ever was. And the wolves alive today are carrying something ancient and irreplaceable inside them. The next time you hear a howl, in a nature documentary, through a forest, in the deep dark, of something that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, ask yourself which wolf that is. Ask yourself what world it is standing in. Ask yourself what it has survived to still be standing there, raising its voice into the sky and getting an answer back. 6 wolves. 1 world. Infinite things we are still learning about the animals we share it with. Which wolf surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. If this opened up something in you, subscribe, because we are just getting started. Until next time, keep asking the questions no one else is asking. Stay curious.